Hey everyone, wherever you are, hope you're having a wonderful week so far. We're here with the latest episode of the Inside Crypto Show, interviews and discussions with the regular people just like yourselves. Today we are joined by Robert Cartwright, the CEO of Wondra. Wondra is a protocol that aims to create the world's first AI agent-driven metaverse 2.0 ecosystem. That's a lot, and we're going to unpack it in today's episode. But before we do, Robert, thank you so much for making time. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much for being on the show. So, a bit about myself. I am an avid lover of technology. I think my whole life has really circled around technology. And I think as I've got older and got more involved in things, it's really that human-centered design. And it's really thinking about how technology can really improve the way that we live, the way that our lives are. This is really what excites me a lot. So I think with a background, my undergrad was in computer science, and then my master's in technology management. I really harnessed this, and I've built a lot of sort of hardware and software products in the past, some of which were on blockchain technology. And I think that experience in blockchain technology, we were building out the supply chain systems for Toyota, which was really a exciting thing. And itemizing these things and tracking where things went really made me interested in this kind of digital twinning idea and how things can be accounted for in a sort of blockchain digital twin authenticity, this kind of stuff. And I don't know, it just really excites me, and innovation and technology, it just gets me really excited.
I can see that and I can hear that as well because reading about Wondra, I'm like, this is really fascinating and interesting. You talked about the digital twin idea. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive straight into it. What is a digital twin and what are you trying to do with Wondra?
So I think there are a couple things to dismantle on that. First is, what is a digital twin? And then how is Wondra doing this kind of digital twin is possibly slightly different. Digital twins have been around for a long time. And I think that we have digital twins in different meanings of what digital twin is. And I think originally people started thinking digital twin is only for manufacturing. And this is, we can take a motor apart and we can create a 3D kind of VR augmented thing. And there's lots of case studies about digital twinning in three-dimensional make an engine. And this is something great. People, Vision Pro, first apps, things like this. Everyone's talking about this. But I think digital twinning goes far beyond, can we take an engine? Can we look at open heart surgery and see how this works? To, can we really create like a digital twin of a soul? And that's where kind of Wondra falls into, is digital twinning of human interactions. So a lot of times digital twinning has been taking stationary things. So you have a factory, you have all these different kind of machinery, they go through a flow, you can see how you would change it, how you would do things. And inside the digital twin, you can create an environment of this. And you can also get dashboards from digital twinning and really get things. Where I think things get really exciting is almost like digital soul. So the digital twinning of like a person starts to really fundamentally understand the way that things are. And I actually got really involved in this a long time ago. So during my undergrad, my essay was actually, one of my essays I wrote was on Second Life. And I went into Second Life and I looked at this and I really saw that people were putting themselves out in this like perfect way for themselves and really trying to show themselves in this best light and what they can do for themselves. And people were communicating and working in this kind of metaverse world. And this is really a lot of what Wondra is trying to do, is how can we take those interactions that people are having and try and create a digital twin of these interactions? And we're trying to do that with AI. For example, there are certain people that have cliques. You look at a high school, you look at a university, you look at society. There's like tribes that people fall into. And there are certain tribes and certain groups of people that really resonate well with each other and like working with each other. And I think this is really where we're seeing digital twinning is, how can we create that? How can we know about you, right? We know that you have some political views, some religious views, some gender views. You have all of these things, but this is pretty surface level. How can we go deeper than that? And a long time ago, things like eHarmony talked about matching people on 67 different dynameters to find out what people were. And it totally didn't work. It totally failed. And it didn't really match with people. And I found out that the Tinder, the Bumble, the Coffee Meets Bagel, just go on some dates, start meeting people, and you start resonating where they are. Imagine if you didn't have to go on all those dates and you could actually just start talking with your AI. So your AI knows you, your AI talks to someone else's AI, and you can start matching similarities. And this can also be in like a business sense, right? People hate going to networking events where some people are really introverted. Some people obviously love networking events, but some people are very introverted, but they have some great things to say, and it takes some time to warm up and go through it. And then if a networking event has 200 people, you got 200 conversations, or you don't get to meet everyone, and it's really, it's failing there. And I think this is really where digital twinning can make our world so much more efficient. It really has a lot of advantages to how we interact. It's totally going to change the way that we interact with one another as humans, the way that we do business. I think this is like a much bigger evolution than Zoom even, because it can really start to fundamentally understand people and link people together.
Wow, that was an amazing explanation, Robert. I really appreciate it. Talking about digital twinning, right? And when you started, I'm like, okay. And then as you explain more, I'm like, yeah, this really makes a lot of sense. So let's expand on this, right? Because I know when I talk to the audience, this is Wondra, check out the website. Do you have any questions? And people see the word metaverse and they immediately think the Apple headset, they think Facebook, Meta Quest 3. But Wondra is not this, right? It's maybe linked to it, but it's not like you putting on a headset and in a metaverse, right? It's much more expansive, much more deeper than that.
Yeah, I think that's really where Wondra is going in that. So I think the metaverse really excites me a lot. And I think sometimes the metaverse really allows us to have a different version of ourselves. And it really allows us to test things out. I think that society, and this is also what possibly hurts a lot of people, is there's a lot of isolation. I even hear people just on the street in California. The other day, I heard someone just overhearing like a conversation saying that they just feel so isolated. And I just really feel that some of the mental health problems and things like that people have, a lot of it comes from isolation. And the metaverse really solves this kind of isolation issue. And not everyone is a type A extrovert. Let me just go out with a ball and I'm going to find people and I'm just going to hang out. A lot of people aren't like that. And the metaverse really allows people to still communicate with people and find things that they're really passionate about. And I think historically in the old days, people really had to be forced into things that they didn't like, right? Your father's a blacksmith, so you're going to be a blacksmith. And your son's going to be a blacksmith. And everyone just forces into things that maybe they didn't like and they conformed. And I think that our modern life is saying we should really focus on happiness and we should focus less on conformity and more about what interests you. How can you find people who are involved in this niche kind of interesting thing, right? Maybe you really love dogs and you want to talk about this, or you're really involved in this technology thing and you've found some kind of algorithm to do something and you really want to meet people who do this. The metaverse is really a way that you can meet all these different kind of peoples and you can have polarizing different kind of views and you can find people who meet your views. If you live in even just to a basic level, if you live in a very Republican town and you're a Democrat, or vice versa, you live in a Democrat town and you're a Republican, right? You feel you don't have people that you can really talk to and talk in these different ways. The metaverse is really a way that you can talk through these and find kind of people to your things. And we have a platform called Wonky, and Wonky is actually part of what helps us get into the metaverse. So Wonky is like an AI chatbot, and you talk with Wonky and you have conversations with Wonky, and then Wonky gives you AI responses. And from all that data, we're able to process machine learning on the Wonky data to start to analyze and understand you. And I think a long time ago, people have said Google knows more about you than your doctor does or your family. The same is true about Wonky, right? Because you're going to be asking Wonky everything.
Okay. So let's talk about the AI and then we'll dive into the blockchain crypto stuff first. Anyone familiar with AI, OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, and Claude, right? What is your AI model, or is it something you guys developed on your own as a large language model, or who are you using? What is Wonky built on top of?
So Wonky is our own LLM. So we're actually using some of those basically pre-established ones that you're talking about, and then building upon some of these open LLMs, and then building into our kind of own LLM. And I think it's very important that we can build our own LLM, because then we can do that kind of learning process, but we can do that learning process for you. So I think a lot of these LLMs, they're really just focused on giving you the answer, and they're not focused on really understanding you as a person. So I don't know if anyone understands AI, but this is like a fun how AI works. AI doesn't have memory at all. So the way AI works is there's something called tokens. These are not crypto tokens. These are like AI tokens. So if you ask into, for example, Claude, Anthropic, you want to ask, why is the Big Apple called the Big Apple? Everyone knows New York is called the Big Apple. Why is this? And then you type in this question. This string of text is probably 14 tokens. And then you get a response. It's like a paragraph long, and it explains why it's the Big Apple. And I'm not going to tell you guys, because I think a really fun thing you guys could do after this is download Wonky and ask Wonky. This could be, let's ask AI. So yeah, an AI response for this is about 28 tokens. And I know this because I did it. And I tested this question exactly. So in this question, you've got that. Then maybe you have a follow-on question and you ask it some follow-on questions. It does not remember that you asked that previous question. AI doesn't actually have any memory. So every time you ask something again, it has to preload in the previous thing. AI needs to basically memorize all of your prompts and then all of your responses. And what we're doing is we're keeping all of these prompts and responses, and then using that data, we're able to try and create a digital twin. And this uses way more AI computation than anyone else is using. So we're using basically more inferencing bandwidth to do this, but it's worth it because we're able to get what we believe, and the more data and the more you use it, something far superior to what anyone else is doing. Because everyone else it doesn't remember what you're talking about. So it's not creating that digital soul and that digital twin of yourself.
This sounds really exciting. And I'm going to ask you, right? So someone listening to this would have seen the news. Training LLMs and data costs and server costs have come down significantly as more and more people are doing it and more companies are doing it. You as Wondra, with Wonky as well, right? What's the economic model? How are you guys going to be making money going into the future?
To start with, our revenue model is actually you get paid for this. What we're doing is, think of it like a credit card company. So if you're using American Express, or I don't know where these users are from, but in the US, a lot of credit card companies will give you like cashback. They'll give you like 5% cashback or things like that for using a credit card. What we see this is using AIs. You can use a lot of free AIs out there, but using Wonky will actually give you tokens for using this. We understand that everyone can pick which kind of AI they're going to be using. And people are going to be using chatbots for AI to write their emails, to ask questions and things like this. And the question is, why would you use Wonky over another one? The digital twinning, right? But how can we sweeten that deal and get people involved in it? We're basically incentivizing you with giving you tokens. So it's something that you have to do anyway, which is use AI. I think that Wonky is one of the best AIs, but I'm very biased. and we're incentivizing you with tokens. And then these tokens can then be converted to our second token. And this is why we need the blockchain in there. And then those tokens can be exchanged into fiat currencies, like US dollar, for example.
That is awesome. So let's dive into that second token, right? Like, why have this blockchain mechanism or secondary mechanism, and what blockchain are you on? Let's dive into the crypto and how does this all work?
Yeah. So I think what blockchain you build on, I think for us, isn't so critical as to what blockchain we build on. So I think it's really more about how we can provide an outsourced value. And I think this is really what we're trying to do. And I think this is why we need the blockchain, is it's because of the tokenomics of this. So for people who are early users of our platform, they're basically able to get rewarded with tokens. And then in the future, because you've basically helped build out the platform by getting the data, those tokens will be worth more in the future because you got them at an earlier stage. This will basically help reward the people who helped build out our platform. And I think that's really something that's great about blockchain technology. And more than just blockchain, it's the tokenomics and the tokenization of a project. So by having this, you're basically able to like IPO a company in a startup stage. And then you're able to create something like a co-op where the users believe in you and they own part of your project. And this is, again, because to make this project work, and I guess any project, but especially ours, where we're trying to really understand people and use AI, we need a lot of data. And getting a lot of data means we need a lot of users. So this is why the token is so critical and why we are rewarding our users so much, is so that they can help us collect this data. And then not only will they get financially rewarded, but hopefully they'll be able to see things in a better light and get some really useful and insightful things, and then build this into our future thing, which is the metaverse, where you have digital souls and digital twins, and then these are able to interact with other people and talk inside the metaverse with each other.
Fantastic. So somebody watching the video, right, or somebody watching a TikTok clip or a YouTube short, they're like, cool, this is really interesting. What is the current status of Wonky? Can we download it on our phones? Is it a desktop app? Is it a Mac app? And I guess a follow-up question is, people like, okay, I know when I'm interacting with ChatGPT or Claude, they're absorbing all my information. It's going into the cloud. They're training on it, right? Is there a privacy aspect to this? if there isn't, that's fine as well. I find it okay. I know they're going to know a lot about me, but that's the price I pay for using OpenAI or using a free version of this. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think you can't have it, and we had this whole team discussion on privacy. So you can't have both sides to it. You can't have privacy, and then you can't have like super insightful things. And you essentially need to pick, do I care about privacy or do I care about having like insightful things around me? And I think sometimes everyone freaks out about privacy and gets scared about it. But actually, when you have a phone and people click yes to everything, they're actually allowing their data to be used. And would you want, for example, your music history? You're sharing all your music history with Spotify and Apple Music, and they're creating tailored playlists for you. And maybe Spotify, I'm not exactly certain what Spotify's thing is, but maybe Spotify sees that you really like artist ABC, and ABC, and they look at your IP address and they see that you're in town XYZ, and they're like, oh man, ABC is playing in your town. Maybe you might want to get some concert tickets. And actually, for some people, that's super helpful. They're like, I didn't know, man. I love listening to this band, and now they're here. That's great. So I think sometimes privacy gets too freaked out on privacy. And if they let you know and you don't want to go see them, who cares, right? It's an email or it's a push notification. It doesn't matter. But I think in some ways, privacy can actually be a good thing to have some of the data being collected and analyzing. And that's what we're talking about with Wonky and the metaverse and things like that, is it will really start understanding you. So if you're writing Wonky and asking it about trying to do some kitchen renovations or things like that, maybe it's nice to get some offer and some sales that IKEA has a sale on a kitchen. Maybe that's really nice and really convenient. And you were looking at this and Wonky helped find you some local things. Or maybe there's like some kind of electrician that like can help you fix this. And they use like the blockchain, and these people have like recommendations and are very trustworthy people because they've got many reviews and trustworthy people, and helping you say, hey, you know, this is helpful, just like a friend, right? If you have a friend and you're saying that you've got problems and things like that, that friend gives you advice and gives you help and tells you about things. So that's where we see really Wonky is like getting more involved into your life. And in some ways it does have to know you to do that, but it's a good thing for Wonky to know you. And then I think the other part to that is security. So we have really high security, and the blockchain is like the best security in the world. This is impenetrable. That's what the whole blockchain is about. So knowing you doesn't matter long as we have security. And because it's blockchain, its security is immutable.
Perfect. I love that answer, Robert. Expanding on this a little bit further, right? Let's say, I think Apple had their recent announcement with OpenAI, and they're like, oh, I forgot what is the word for that, where they killed a bunch of Apple apps because now that they're doing A, B, C, and D, that you can no longer do this. Are you going to get to a stage where you're no longer dependent on these other models and you've built your own model, and that your users like me and other people will be like, okay, Wondra is in it for the long term. They have their own LLM. They're no longer beholden to OpenAI's API or Google's or whoever's, right? So is that the long-term plan, to have this big LLM or a small LLM? Or are you guys also working on your own sort of large language model technologies so that you can be more differentiated in the future?
We are actually building our LLMs. So we're actually building our own LLMs, and we're not dependent on ChatGPT to build Wonky. And I think that's really important. I know that Apple, or obviously, as you said an example, Apple are using ChatGPT and want to use ChatGPT. I'm not sure that the best thing is to be dependent on someone else all the time. There's strongly a risk is you're building on someone else's thing and someone else can take this away from you. Some of these companies, they always have best intentions and they say, oh, we would never. But then in the future, maybe you're essentially a competitor to them and they copy you or remove your API or make it so you can't do things, and they try to move up and downstream. And we've even seen this with Apple, right? Apple had all these amazing weather apps, and they promoted them and said that there were these beautiful weather apps, and how many other weather apps can you do? And then they simply killed it by buying, was it called Dark Sky, I think it was, or Deep Sky or something like that. And they basically bought this, implemented it into their Apple weather app, and now the Apple weather app is pretty impressive, and it's killed a lot of other products in there. And they go through this a lot. There are little kind of tweaks. The new Apple operating system has a way that you can automatically snap things to different corners, and there was a kind of little app that did this, and now that's gone. There were entire businesses that made calculator apps for the iPad, and now Apple's built that, and your entire business can disappear overnight. So I think it's important that we build our own LLMs and build out our own system so that we're not beholden to someone else's whim and change overnight.
I totally agree with you. And you gave the examples that I was thinking of when I read a recent article as well. Robert, coming back to Wondra and Wonky, what's the roadmap for this year, if you're able to talk about it again, or for next year? Like, what should people be looking forward to? What's on the horizon?
So I think in exciting things is creating that digital twin and that digital soul. And I think when we try to expand into that metaverse, that's really exciting. In the more nearer terms, Wonky is really an awesome platform. You guys can go to our website, and I don't know if you put the links underneath or above or somewhere, but they'll probably. So yeah, you guys can do this. I think actually you guys did talk about a question, which I'll try to get back to, on how does this work and what kind of browser it was. But let me go back to the roadmap question. On the roadmap, TGE is obviously a very important thing as well. And we have that on the horizon, which people can really look out to. But I think that we're always constantly trying to build and adapt to the greatest thing and creating this digital twinning and creating these immersive experiences. I don't know if anyone has been following our X account, formerly Twitter, and looking on there, we're really creating these kind of environments and immersive kind of content and really thinking about what you can be doing with this. And I think that as we pivot and we adapt and continue to build, there's so much exciting things going. And I think that following us on X or Twitter is really a way to see where we're going on some of that. And then, of course, like I mentioned a few times, people who get involved early are always the people who get rewarded the most. If you're seeing this today, or you're seeing this in a month or in a year, we're really here for the long term. So even if this is a year later and you're watching this video, this is, again, an awesome time to start getting involved. You asked about how people can use this. So if people do know much about Web3, essentially, a lot of Web3 things are very difficult to actually release on the Apple App Store. So Apple has some rules which prevent a lot of Web3 products from getting released onto the Apple App Store. So what we have built is essentially a web app. And in this web app, you can go through your wallet. So you can connect your wallet to it. And then on your wallet, you can either, like on your Safari, you can connect with your wallet. And our plan is to obviously support multiple wallets. And then you'll be able to connect with your wallet of choice. And then you're able to basically then connect that to Wonky and then use Wonky through either your Chrome browser with the extension or inside some of these different wallets. So inside these wallets, they have like a web browser that's a bit like Safari for your iPhone, and then you're able to connect on there.
Nice. That's relatively easy. I've got to admit that. I know a big thing in the last year or so has been the idea of account abstraction, or basically removing the terminology blockchain, crypto, MetaMask, Phantom, whatever you want to call it, right? Is that something you guys are going to do in the future, where it's just go there, sign in with Apple ID or Google, and that's how you interact with Wonky in the future? Is that a possibility? Are you going to stick more towards the traditional sort of crypto rails?
So I think connecting your wallet is just as easy as connecting with Apple ID. In fact, if not easier. So I don't know if you're familiar with using much kind of crypto, but it's actually so easy. I would say it's easier than connecting with your Apple ID, because it just connects with your wallet and you're just connected like that. And I think that these wallets are going to get even smarter and even better to connect with. And then, of course, because this is crypto, these wallets and these logon processes, these are like super secure, which is, again, much better than using like your Google account. So I think for our sign-on and for getting users on board, we've really built this in a really easy-to-use way.
Sure, no, and I totally agree with you. There's definitely something to be said for MetaMask security. Robert, we've talked about a lot. You've answered a lot. Before we end off today's episode, I just wanted to give you the final say. Anything else about Wondra or Wonky that we haven't talked about that you'd like to plug? Any big dates? The floor is yours. Take as much time as you want.
So yeah, I think, again, thank you so much for everyone watching today, I think is the big plug. I think getting involved early is the big plug. I know that this is obviously pre-recorded, so this is going out, and I don't know if all your users are watching this day one or watching it months down the line. I think, again, as I mentioned, Twitter is an awesome place to see what we have as exciting things. So if you guys are watching this a few months from now or a few days from now, we always have so many exciting things. And the roadmap just has so much exciting things. I don't want to give them away, but if you start looking at what we've done, a lot of kind of events, and we really want to start engaging with social people. Again, if you guys have questions, you can for sure DM me. I love hearing from you guys. You can also DM Wondra directly. I think so much exciting things happening. And again, being involved in the cusp of this early thing, this digital twin, this digital soul, we've got so far to go, and it's definitely hard. It's a challenge, right? Building the unknown is hard, but I think together as a community, we can really make this happen.
I totally agree. And you said some really exciting and interesting things. AI and crypto together definitely sounds like a match made in heaven. Robert, I really appreciate your time. Especially you had to do this in a car today, so that's even more impressive. I'll put all of Wondra's socials and Wonky's socials. For people who want to follow you, is there a best place to follow you, LinkedIn or X, or what's the best place to follow you?
X is the best. So I'm always posting on X. X is a great place to follow me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll make sure to include that as well in the show notes for today's episode. Robert, thank you again, and I wish you a safe drive home. Thank you for taking the time after work as well. I know you must be tired. And hopefully we can get to catch up maybe next year and talk about Wondra and Wonky's 2025 plans.
Absolutely, absolutely. This sounds great. I would love to. Yeah. And you say drive home, but in the Web3 world, we're always online. We're always working. We're trying to build this out, and we're working hard on it.
I can definitely see that. Thank you very much.